Katie Brooks stepped off the transport ship and into the biggest space station she had ever seen. The metal walls stretched high above her head, and strange lights blinked in patterns she did not understand. Aliens walked past her in all directions. Some had blue skin and looked like giant lizards. Others floated in glass suits filled with colorful gas. A few had 4 arms and moved like dancers. She pulled her bag closer to her body and checked the paper in her hand. The words, Harmony Prime Training Station, were written at the top. Below that was her assignment number and room location. Katie had dreamed of this day for years, but now that she was here, everything felt too big and too strange. A loud voice boomed across the arrival area. New trainees report to station commander immediately. Katie looked around and saw other newcomers, gathering near a large door. She walked over and joined the group. The door opened with a soft hiss. Inside was a room filled with chairs arranged in neat rows. At the front stood the biggest alien Katie had ever seen. His blue scales caught the light as he moved, and his yellow eyes scanned the group like a predator looking for prey. 2 smaller aliens stood beside him, also blue-scaled but not as tall. "I am Commander Vexistar," the big alien said. His voice was deep and rough. "You are here because your species believes you can learn to fight alongside the Galactic Federation. Most of you will fail. Some of you should not even be here." His eyes stopped on Katie. She felt like a mouse being watched by a cat. The commander's lips pulled back to show sharp white teeth. "Humans," he said the word like it tasted bad. "Your species just joined the Federation last year. You have no claws, no natural armor, no special abilities. You are soft and weak. I do not understand why the Council accepted you." Katie felt her face grow hot, but she kept quiet. Around her, the other aliens shifted in their seats. Some looked at her with curiosity. Others seemed to agree with the commander. "You will be divided into training squads," Vextar continued. "Each squad has 7 members from different species. You will learn to work together, fight together, and probably fail together. Training begins tomorrow at dawn. Do not be late." A smaller alien stepped forward. This one had green skin and spoke in a softer voice. "Squad assignments are now displayed on the wall screens. Find your squad number and report to your quarters. Dinner is served in the main hall in 2 hours." Katie found her name on Squad 12. She memorized the other names on the list, though most were hard to pronounce. Her room number was written next to her name. She picked up her bag and followed. The signs through long hallways filled with more strange sights and sounds. Her room was small but clean. It had a bed, a desk, and a window that looked out into space. Katie could see stars and distant planets through the thick glass. For a moment, she forgot about the scary commander and just stared at the beautiful view. She was really here. Really, in space, really part of something bigger than Earth. A soft knock on her door broke her thoughts. Katie opened it to find a tall, thin alien with 4 arms. Its skin was gray and smooth, and it moved with perfect balance. "I am Zixnal," the alien said. "We are squad mates. I wanted to meet you before dinner." "I'm Katie," she replied. "Nice to meet you." Zixnal studied her with large black eyes. "You are very small," it said. "How do humans fight without weapons or armor?" Katie thought about how to answer. "We use tools and work together. We're good at solving problems." "Interesting," Zixnal said, but it did not sound convinced. "I have heard that humans are warriors, but you do not look dangerous." Before Katie could respond, another alien appeared in the hallway. This one looked like a giant insect with 6 legs and shiny green skin. It clicked and buzzed as it spoke. "I am Chitter, Squad 12 as well. The human is much smaller than I expected." Soon, more squad mates arrived. Senthil was tall and thin with purple skin and large eyes that seemed to glow. It spoke directly into Katie's mind instead of using words, which made her jump in surprise. The Depth Dweller wore a water-filled suit and communicated through light, patterns on its skin. The Shard being looked like a walking crystal and spoke in musical tones. The last member was different from the others. It floated in a clear suit filled with swirling blue gas. When it spoke, the voice came from a device attached to the suit. "I am Neberon. We are curious about human capabilities. Your species file says you have no special abilities. Katie felt like she was being interviewed by a panel of judges. We might not have special abilities like you do, but we're here for a reason. What reason? Chitter clicked. You have no advantage in combat. Maybe that's what makes us different, Katie said. We learned to fight without advantages. The group stood quietly for a moment. Katie could feel them thinking about her answer, but she was not sure they believed her. Dinner time approaches, Senthil said inside her head. We should go together, as a squad. They walked to the main hall as a group. Katie felt very small next to her squad mates, but she tried to walk with confidence. The main hall was huge and filled with long tables. Hundreds of aliens sat eating food from their home worlds. Katie got her meal from the human food station and sat with her squad. The conversation was awkward at first, but slowly they began to share stories about their home worlds and why they joined the training program. My people value honor in battle, Zixnal explained. I am here to bring that honor to the Federation. Knowledge and cooperation, Senthil added mentally. These are what my species contributes. When it was Katie's turn, she thought carefully about her words. Humans are good at adapting. We survive by learning and changing when we need to. Commander Vextar walked past their table during dinner. He stopped and looked down at Katie with those yellow predator eyes. Adapting will not help you here, human. This is warrior training, not a classroom. He leaned closer. I predict you will quit before the first week ends. Katie looked up at him without blinking. I don't quit. The commander made a sound that might have been laughter. We shall see. He walked away, his heavy footsteps echoing in the hall. Katie's squad mates watched this exchange with interest. She could see questions in their eyes, but none of them spoke. The rest of dinner passed quietly. That night, Katie lay in her small bed looking out at the stars. Tomorrow would bring new challenges and more tests. Commander Vextar clearly wanted her to fail, and her squad mates had doubts about human abilities. But Katie had not come this far to give up now. She thought about all the humans who had fought and struggled to get Earth accepted into the Federation. She thought about her training back home and all the instructors who had prepared her for this moment. Outside her window, the stars seemed to twinkle like they were winking at her. Katie smiled and closed her eyes. Tomorrow, the real training would begin. The alarm sound woke Katie before dawn. She had barely slept, but she jumped out of bed and got dressed quickly. Her squad mates were already gathering in the hallway when she opened her door. They moved toward the training area together, but nobody spoke much. The training room was massive, with high ceilings and equipment Katie did not recognize. Commander Vexitar stood in the center wearing dark armor. Several other instructors surrounded him, all looking serious and ready for business. Physical assessment begins now, Vexitar announced. We will test strength, speed, endurance, and combat reflexes. Each species will show what they can do. He pointed to a series of machines and obstacles. Zixnal, you go first. Katie watched as her four-armed squad mate moved through the course like water flowing downhill. Zixnal lifted weights that looked impossible to move, ran faster than Katie had ever seen anyone run, and hit targets with perfect accuracy using all four arms at once. Excellent, Vextar said, making notes on a tablet. This is what warrior species look like. Chitter went next. The insect-like alien scuttled over walls and through narrow spaces with amazing speed. Its natural armor deflected practice weapons without taking any damage. When it finished, Chitter had broken several course records. One by one, Katie's squad mates showed off abilities that seemed impossible. Senthil moved objects with its mind and predicted where attacks would come from before they happened. The shard being became harder than diamond when threatened, and could reshape parts of its body into weapons. Even Nebron, floating in its gas suit, could pass through solid barriers and become invisible. Then it was Katie's turn. The first test was lifting weights. Katie struggled with loads that the others had moved easily. Sweat dripped down her face as she strained to complete the minimum requirements. Some aliens in the observation area whispered to each other and pointed at her. Disappointing, Vextar said loudly. But not surprising. The running test was worse. Katie's legs burned as she tried to keep up with times set by beings with longer legs and stronger muscles. She finished dead last, gasping for air while others barely seemed tired. Combat reflexes were the worst test of all. The machine shot rubber balls at high speed from different directions. The other species dodged them easily or used natural abilities to deflect them. Katie got hit repeatedly, leaving bruises on her arms and legs. Pathetic, Vextar announced when she finished. Your species has no business in warrior training. Katie wiped blood from a cut on her cheek and looked at the commander. The test isn't over yet. You are correct, Vextar smiled, showing his sharp teeth. Now we test actual combat skills. He led the group to another area filled with practice weapons and protective gear. Choose your weapons and face off against training robots. Show me how your species fights. Katie watched her squadmates go first again. Each one dominated their robot opponent using natural abilities combined with weapons training. Zixanal used 4 weapons at once, overwhelming the robot with multiple attacks. Cheater's natural armor let it ignore the robot's strikes while landing devastating counterattacks. When Katie's turn came, she picked up a simple metal staff. The robot activated and immediately began attacking with mechanical precision. Katie dodged and blocked as best she could, but the robot was stronger and faster. After 2 minutes of defensive fighting, the robot tagged her with enough hits to register a victory. 0 wins for the human, Vextar announced. Perhaps your species should reconsider this career choice. Other instructors laughed. Katie heard whispers from the observation area where other training squads watched. The words weak and useless reached her ears clearly. During lunch break, Katie sat alone while her squad mates ate together at another table. She could see them talking and occasionally glancing in her direction. Their body language made it clear they were discussing her poor performance. Afternoon training was tactical simulations using computers. Each squad member had to plan an attack on an enemy position using their natural abilities and available resources. Katie studied the problem carefully, but her plan seemed simple compared to the complex strategies her squad mates developed. Zixnal created a 4-pronged assault that used superior speed and multiple weapon systems. Chitter planned an infiltration using stealth and natural armor. Senthil designed a psychological warfare approach that confused enemy thinking patterns. Katie's plan involved basic distraction and flanking maneuvers. When she presented it, the room fell silent. This is elementary, Vextar said. A child could design better tactics. Sometimes simple works, Katie replied. Not against real enemies, the commander shot back. Your plan would get everyone killed. That evening, Katie found herself eating dinner alone again. Her squad mates seemed friendly enough, but they clearly did not see her as an equal. She overheard part of their conversation from the next table. The human cannot keep up, Chitter was saying. She will slow down the entire squad. Perhaps that is the plan, Zixnal replied. Maybe humans are meant to be support staff, not warriors. I sense frustration in her mind, Senthil added, but also determination. She will not quit easily. Determination without ability is useless, Chitter clicked dismissively. Katie finished her meal and returned to her room. She spent the evening reviewing training materials and studying videos of combat techniques. Everything seemed designed for beings with natural weapons, armor, or special abilities. She wondered if maybe the others were right about humans not belonging here. The next morning brought more of the same: physical training, weapons practice, tactical exercises. Katie improved slightly, but still ranked last in every category. Commander Vextar seemed to enjoy pointing out her failures in front of the other squads. Watch the human struggle, he would announce during demonstrations. This is what happens when evolution does not prepare a species for warfare. By the end of the second week, Katie had collected more bruises and cuts than she could count. Her confidence was shaking, but she refused to give up. She stayed after training hours to practice alone, pushing herself harder each day. One evening, Zixnal found her in the training room working on combat forms. You are improving, the 4-armed alien said. But slowly. I know, Katie panted, sweat dripping from her face. I just need more time. Time may not be available, Zixnal warned. Commander Vextar speaks of removing you from the program. He says you are holding back the squad's progress. Katie stopped practicing and looked at her squad mate. What do you think? Zixnal was quiet for a long moment. I think you are trying very hard. But trying and succeeding are different things. I won't quit, Katie said firmly. Perhaps quitting would be wiser, Zixnal replied gently. There is no shame in recognizing limitations. After Zixnal left, Katie continued practicing alone. She worked on basic moves, trying to find ways to use her smaller size and flexibility as advantages. But every time she thought she was improving, she remembered how easily the others performed tasks that nearly broke her. Commander Vextar's words echoed in her mind. Your species has no business in warrior training. Maybe he was right. Maybe humans really were not meant for this kind of life. Maybe Earth had made a mistake trying to join the warriors of the galaxy. Katie punched the practice dummy harder than usual, imagining it was her own doubts. The impact hurt her knuckles, but the pain felt good. It reminded her that she was still here, still fighting, still refusing to give up. 3 weeks into training, and she was still the worst performer in every category. But she was still here. That had to count for something. Outside the training room windows, the stars twinkled in the endless darkness of space. They had watched civilizations rise and fall for billions of years. They had seen countless species learn to reach beyond their homeworlds and find their place among the stars. Katie looked up at those stars and made a silent promise. She would find a way to prove that humans belonged here, no matter how long it took or how much it hurt. She just needed to figure out how. Week 4 brought new challenges that pushed Katie even further beyond her limits. Commander Vexitar had designed special training scenarios that seemed specifically created to make her fail in the most public way possible. Every morning, he would announce the day's exercises with a smile that showed too many teeth. Today we practice high-gravity combat, he declared during morning briefing. The gravity chamber will be set to 3 times normal levels. This will test your species' true capabilities. Katie felt her stomach drop. 3 times gravity meant her body would feel 3 times heavier than normal. Walking would be difficult. Fighting would be nearly impossible. She watched her squad mates receive this news with typical calm. Their species had evolved on worlds with varying gravity levels or had natural abilities that helped them adapt quickly. The gravity chamber was a spherical room with smooth metal walls. As soon as the increased gravity activated, Katie felt like someone had placed heavy weights on every part of her body. Her knees buckled, and she struggled to stand upright. Around her, the other squad members adjusted to the new conditions with minor difficulty. Zixnal moved slower than usual but maintained perfect balance with 4 arms. Cheater's natural exoskeleton seemed to handle the pressure without problems. The others used their special abilities to compensate for the increased gravity. Combat. Simulation begins now, Vextar announced from the observation deck. Robots will attack in waves, survive for 10 minutes. The first robot emerged from a wall panel and immediately targeted Katie as the weakest member. She tried to dodge its attack, but moved too slowly in the heavy gravity. The robot's practice weapon struck her shoulder, sending her tumbling to the floor. Fighting to get back up felt like climbing a mountain. By the time Katie regained her footing, the robot had moved on to engage other squad members who were actually putting up a fight. She spent most of the 10 minutes struggling to stay upright while her teammates handled the real combat. Pathetic. Display from the human, Vextar commented over the intercom. She contributed nothing to the team's success. After the exercise, Katie could barely walk. Her muscles screamed in pain and her head pounded from the strain. Senthil approached her in the recovery area, its large eyes filled with concern. Your emotional state is becoming dangerous, the telepathic alien warned, speaking directly into her mind. I sense anger building to levels that worry me. Your thoughts are growing darker each day. I'm fine, Katie replied out loud, not wanting the others to overhear a mental conversation. You are not fine, Senthil insisted silently. Among my people, we recognize the signs of psychological pressure approaching critical levels. You are being pushed beyond normal limits. Katie wanted to argue, but she knew Senthil was right. Every night she lay in bed thinking of different ways to prove herself, and lately those thoughts had become more aggressive. She found herself imagining scenarios where she could show everyone exactly what humans were capable of, usually involving some form of violence. The next day brought another impossible challenge. Commander Vextar led all the training squads to a massive arena filled with obstacles, weapons, and combat robots. This was the War Games area where squads competed against each other in mock battles. Special exercise today, Vextar announced. Each squad will choose one member to represent them in single combat. The chosen warrior will face challenges designed for their specific abilities. Katie's heart sank as she realized what was coming. Every squad would choose their strongest member except Squad 12. Her squad mates would be forced to choose her, and she would fail spectacularly in front of everyone. The conversation among her squad was brief and uncomfortable. They tried to be polite, but the conclusion was obvious. Katie was their only choice because nobody else wanted to risk their reputation on such an uneven fight. "We believe in you," Zixanal said, but the words sounded empty. "Do your best." The raw arena challenge began with obstacle courses that required climbing, jumping, and balancing skills. Katie struggled through each section while representatives from other squads completed them effortlessly. The audience of training squads watched her fumbling progress with a mixture of pity and embarrassment. "Look at the human struggle with basic movement," someone called out from the stands. Laughter rippled through the crowd. Next came weapons training against multiple robot opponents. Katie managed to survive but never gained the upper hand. She spent most of the time dodging and retreating while the robots pressed their attacks. Her performance was technically adequate but looked cowardly compared to the aggressive fighting styles of other species. The final challenge was tactical command. Each representative had to direct their squad through a simulated battle using communication devices. This was Katie's chance to show that humans could contribute through intelligence and strategy, even if they lacked physical advantages. She studied the battlefield layout carefully and developed a plan that used each squad member's abilities efficiently. Her tactics were solid and practical, focusing on coordination rather than individual heroics. But when the simulation began, everything went wrong. The communication delay meant her orders arrived too late to be useful. Her squad mates were used to fighting independently and struggled to follow complex coordinated instructions. The result was a confused mess that ended in total defeat. "Worst tactical performance I have seen in 20 years, Vextar announced to the entire arena. "The human cannot lead and cannot fight. She is useless in every military capacity." The silence that followed was deafening. Katie stood in the center of the arena feeling the weight of hundreds of alien eyes staring at her. She had failed completely and publicly, proving every doubt about human capabilities. That evening, she skipped dinner and went directly to her room. She lay on her bed staring at the ceiling, trying not to think about the disappointed faces of her squad mates or the satisfied expression on Commander Vextar's face. A soft knock interrupted her brooding. She opened the door to find Cheater waiting in the hallway. "I wanted to speak with you," the insectoid alien clicked. "Today was difficult." "Today was a disaster," Katie corrected. "Yes," Cheater agreed bluntly. "But I have been observing your behavior patterns. My species studies predator and prey relationships very carefully. You show signs that concern me." "What kind of signs?" "Pre-strike preparation. Among hunting species, there are specific behavioral changes that occur before an attack. Increased tension, focused attention, suppressed communication. You are displaying all of these indicators." Katie felt a chill run down her spine. "I'm not planning to attack anyone." "Perhaps not consciously," Chitter replied. "But your instincts are preparing for conflict. My advice is to be very careful. When pressure builds beyond certain limits, even prey species can become dangerous." After Chitter left, Katie thought about the warning. She had been feeling more aggressive lately, imagining confrontations with Commander Vextar, and fantasizing about proving him wrong through force rather than skill. Maybe the constant humiliation was affecting her more than she realized. The next morning brought the worst challenge yet. Commander Vexitar announced that Squad 12 would participate in an endurance test in the high-gravity chamber. They would wear full combat gear and carry heavy equipment while performing military exercises for 4 straight hours. This will separate the warriors from the pretenders, he declared, looking directly at Katie. The high-gravity chamber was set to twice normal gravity this time, which was manageable for short periods but exhausting over hours. Katie struggled with the heavy gear from the beginning. The combat vest, helmet, and weapon pack felt like they weighed as much as she did. Her squad mates tried to help by carrying some of her equipment, but Vextar quickly put a stop to that. Each member carries their own load, he ordered. No assistance allowed. For 3.5 hours, Katie pushed herself beyond every limit she thought she had. Her muscles cramped, her vision blurred from exhaustion, and her breathing became labored and painful. But she kept going, determined not to quit in front of everyone. Then her legs finally gave out. She collapsed during a routine marching exercise, her body simply unable to continue. The heavy equipment crashed down around her as she hit the metal floor. Medical teams rushed in to check for injuries while Katie lay gasping for breath. She was conscious, but unable to stand. The humiliation was complete and total. Commander Vexitar approached as the medics helped her sit up. He crouched down so his face was level with hers, his yellow eyes gleaming with satisfaction. "Perhaps your species should stick to farming and domestic arts," he said quietly, but loud enough for others to hear. "Warfare requires evolution beyond your current primitive state." Katie looked up at the towering alien commander. Every muscle in her body ached, her pride was shattered, and weeks of constant humiliation had pushed her to the breaking point. When she spoke, her voice was barely above a whisper, but every word was crystal clear. "Don't push me." The words hung in the air like a challenge. Katie had not planned to say them. They just came out on their own. But once spoken, she did not take them back. She continued staring up at Vextar with steady eyes that no longer held any fear or respect. Something fundamental had shifted in that moment. The prey animal was giving a warning. Commander Vextar's reaction to Katie's quiet warning was immediate and explosive. He threw back his massive head and released a booming laugh that echoed throughout the training facility like thunder. The sound was deep and mocking, filled with genuine amusement at what he saw as a pathetic threat from a defeated creature. Other Zentari instructors heard the laughter and moved closer to see what was so funny. When they saw the small human sitting on the floor surrounded by medical equipment, still gasping for breath from her collapse, they joined in the laughter. Soon the entire training area filled with the sound of alien amusement. "Did you hear that?" Vexitar called out to his fellow instructors, his voice carrying easily across the chamber. "The little human thinks she can intimidate a Zentari warrior. She warns me not to push her." The laughter grew louder. Other training squads stopped their exercises to watch the spectacle. Katie could see aliens pointing at her and making comments. In languages she did not understand, but their body language made their meaning clear. They found her threat hilarious. Vextar stepped closer, using his considerable height advantage to loom over Katie like a mountain casting shadow on an ant. His blue scales glittered under the facility's bright lights as he bent down to bring his face level with hers. His yellow eyes burned with contempt and cruel satisfaction. "What exactly will you do, tiny one?" he asked, his voice dripping with mock concern. "File a complaint with your embassy, write a strongly worded letter. Perhaps you will cry and ask to go home to your safe little planet." More laughter erupted from the gathered crowd. Katie could see her own squad mates watching from the edge of the group. Their expressions showed embarrassment and pity rather than support. Even they seemed to think her warning was foolish. Vextar straightened to his full height, which made him look even more imposing. "Your threats are as empty as your species' claim to warrior status," he announced loudly enough for everyone to hear. "You are nothing but a soft, weak creature playing at being a soldier. You have no fangs, no claws, no armor, no special abilities. What could you possibly do to threaten anyone?" He gestured toward her collapsed form with theatrical disgust. "Look at yourself. You cannot even carry basic equipment without falling down. You lose every physical test, fail every combat simulation, And now you dare to threaten me? The audacity of your species continues to amaze me. The medical team tried to help Katie stand, but she waved them away. She got to her feet slowly, her legs still shaking from exhaustion. The heavy combat gear had been removed, leaving her in just her basic training uniform. She looked incredibly small compared to the towering aliens surrounding her. Perhaps I should demonstrate the difference between us. Vextar continued, his voice becoming more aggressive. Would you like to experience what a real warrior can do to a pretender? I could show you exactly why your species does not belong here. The crowd fell silent, sensing that the situation was escalating beyond mere mockery. Other instructors moved closer, some looking concerned about where this was heading. Training exercises were one thing, but this was becoming personal. Katie stood in the center of the circle formed by dozens of aliens, all staring down at her with expressions ranging from amusement to pity to contempt. The weight of their combined attention should have been crushing, but something inside her had changed during the past few minutes. Senthil, her telepathic squad mate, suddenly stepped forward with alarm written across its features. It had been monitoring the emotional currents in the room and detected something that made its large eyes widen with concern. Commander, Senthil called out urgently. I must advise caution. The human psychological state has shifted dramatically. I am reading extremely dangerous levels of— Silence! Vexitar snapped without taking his eyes off Katie. I do not need warnings about this pathetic creature. He leaned down again, bringing his face close to Katie's. His breath was hot and smelled like metal. Your species conquered nothing but a single planet filled with creatures even weaker than yourselves. You have no idea what real predators are capable of. You are prey animals who somehow learn to use tools, nothing more. Katie's response was so quiet that only Vextar could hear it clearly. But the words carried a weight that made his triumphant expression falter slightly. I warned you. For just a moment, uncertainty flickered in the commander's yellow eyes. There was something in the human's voice that did not match her small size or defeated appearance. Something that suggested she was not as harmless as she looked. But the moment passed quickly. Vextar's cruel smile returned as he decided he was imagining things. No creature this small and weak could pose any real threat to a Zentari warrior. The very idea was absurd. He started to laugh again, a deep chuckle that built into another booming roar of amusement. Even now you try to sound threatening. Your species' delusions know no bounds. The laughter was the last sound Commander Vextar would make as a conscious being. What happened next occurred so quickly that most observers later claimed they missed it entirely. Security cameras would eventually reveal the sequence of events. But even played back in slow motion, the footage was difficult to believe. Katie moved with a speed and precision that seemed impossible for someone who had been collapsing from exhaustion moments before. Her exhaustion had not disappeared, but something else had taken control. Something that did not care about tired muscles or pain or the opinions of alien observers. The first strike targeted a nerve cluster in Vextar's neck that temporarily disrupted his balance and coordination. The second strike, delivered before he could react to the first, hit a pressure point that caused his legs to buckle. The third strike, aimed at his solar plexus, drove the air from his lungs and prevented him from calling for help. All three strikes occurred within the span of a single heartbeat. But Katie was not finished. As Vextar fell backward, his arms windmilling as he tried to regain balance, she followed him down. Her knee found his chest, driving him the rest of the way to the floor. Her hand found his throat, applying pressure in exactly the right place to cut off blood flow to his brain without crushing his windpipe. The massive Zentari commander, who had dominated the training facility through size and intimidation for years, was unconscious before his back hit the metal floor. The entire sequence had lasted exactly 3.7 seconds. Katie rose from the fallen commander's body and stood over him, her breathing barely elevated despite the explosive burst of activity. Her small frame cast a shadow across Vextar's unconscious form as she looked around at the stunned crowd of aliens. The silence in the training facility was absolute. Nobody moved. Nobody spoke. Nobody seemed to be breathing. Katie's voice, when she finally spoke, carried clearly through the silence to every corner of the room. Her words would be repeated in Federation military academies for generations to come. Humans don't have claws, natural armor, or telepathic abilities, she said calmly, as if discussing the weather. What we have is the willingness to break every rule of engagement when pushed too far. We call it going berserk, and it's how we survived long enough to reach the stars. She looked down at the unconscious commander one more time, then back at the crowd of witnesses. I tried to warn him. The medical teams arrived within seconds, their equipment beeping and scanning as they surrounded Commander Vexitar's unconscious form. Katie stepped back to give them room, her movements calm and controlled despite what had just happened. Around her, hundreds of aliens stared in complete silence, their minds struggling to process what they had witnessed. Dr. Kessiani, the station's chief medical officer, ran a scanner over the fallen commander while her assistants checked his vital signs. Her readings showed multiple injuries that would require serious treatment. Vexitar had a cracked collarbone, 3 broken ribs, severe bruising across his chest and neck, and a concussion from lack of oxygen to his brain. "How is this possible?" Dr. Kessiani whispered to her assistant. "The human is 1/3 his size and was exhausted to the point of collapse just minutes ago." Katie heard the question and answered quietly. "Adrenaline is a powerful chemical. When humans face extreme danger, our bodies release it automatically. It lets us ignore pain, fatigue, and physical limitations for short periods. Every human has this ability, but most never need to use it." Station Commander Raxthul pushed through the crowd, his own blue scales darker with anger and concern. He had been in his office when alarms started going off about an incident in the training area. Now he stood looking down at his unconscious instructor and the small human responsible. "Explain what happened here," he demanded, his voice carrying the authority of absolute command. Before Katie could answer, Senthil stepped forward. The telepathic alien's large eyes were still wide with shock from what it had sensed during the confrontation. "Commander Vexitar pushed the human beyond psychological breaking points," Senthil reported. "I tried to warn him that her mental state was becoming dangerous, but he ignored my concerns. When she gave her final warning, he chose to mock her instead of listening." Chitter moved closer, its insectoid features clicking with nervous energy. "My species recognizes predator behavior patterns. The human displayed classic pre-strike indicators for days. She was warning everyone through her actions, but we misunderstood the signals." Station Commander Raxthul studied Katie carefully. "You attacked a superior officer without provocation." "No, sir," Katie replied calmly. "I warned Commander Vexitar multiple times to stop pushing me. When he ignored those warnings and began making physical threats, I defended myself according to Federation combat protocols. All interactions were recorded by station security systems." Raxthul activated his wrist communicator and called for the security recordings. Within minutes, a holographic display showed the entire confrontation from multiple angles. The footage clearly showed Vexitar escalating the situation despite Katie's repeated warnings, then moving into a threatening posture while making aggressive statements. "The human acted within established guidelines for self-defense," the chief security officer reported after reviewing the footage. "Commander Vexitar's behavior violated several protocols regarding treatment of trainees." Dr. Kessiani finished her medical examination and stood up. "He will recover fully but needs immediate surgery for the internal injuries." How did she know exactly where to strike for maximum effect with minimum permanent damage? Katie looked at the doctor with steady eyes. "Every human learns basic anatomy and pressure points as part of our education. We also study the weak points of other Federation species. It's considered essential survival knowledge." This revelation sent murmurs through the crowd. Most aliens had assumed humans were peaceful and naive about combat. The idea that they systematically studied how to disable other species was disturbing to many observers. Zixanal approached Katie cautiously, all 4 arms held in non-threatening positions. "I owe you an apology. My species values strength and honor in battle, but I failed to recognize either quality in you. You have both in greater measure than I understood." The other squad members gathered around Katie, their attitudes completely changed from the embarrassment and pity they had shown earlier. Neberon's gas-filled suit glowed with colors that indicated respect and admiration. "We underestimated your species severely, the gaseous being admitted through its communication device. We assumed that lack of natural weapons meant lack of fighting ability. This was a critical error in judgment." As medical teams carried Commander Vextar away on a floating stretcher, Station Commander Raxthul called for attention from all personnel in the training area. His announcement would be recorded and sent to Federation headquarters within hours. "Let this incident serve as an important lesson about making assumptions based on appearance," he declared. The human trainee acted with appropriate restraint, given the level of provocation she endured. Her response was precise, effective, and designed to neutralize a threat without causing permanent harm. "These are the qualities of a true warrior." He looked directly at Katie. "However, your training here cannot continue under current circumstances. The dynamics have changed too dramatically for normal instruction to proceed." Katie felt her heart sink. After everything she had endured and overcome, she was still being removed from the program. "I understand, sir." "No, I do not think you do," Raxthul continued with what might have been a smile. "You are being transferred to advanced combat instruction with the Federation Special Forces. Your performance today demonstrates capabilities that exceed standard training requirements." The crowd of aliens erupted in surprised chatter. Special Forces was an elite program that most species considered impossible to qualify for. Only the most exceptional warriors from each civilization ever received such invitations. Katie stared at the station commander in shock. "Sir, I failed almost every test. My performance has been terrible." "Your performance in standard tests was poor, because those tests were designed for beings with natural advantages," Raxthul explained. "But when faced with real combat against a superior opponent, you succeeded completely. This suggests that humans excel under pressure rather than in controlled environments." Dr. Kessiani returned from overseeing Vextar's medical transport. "I have been reviewing the physiological data from the incident. The human's body chemistry changed dramatically in the moments before her attack. Heart rate, hormone levels, neural activity, all shifted to patterns I have never seen before. It was like watching her become a different creature entirely." "That is because she did become different," Senthil added thoughtfully. "I monitored her mental state throughout the confrontation. When she reached critical psychological pressure, her consciousness shifted to what I can only describe as a combat mode. All higher reasoning focused on threat elimination with surgical precision." Katie listened to these explanations with growing understanding. "My instructors on Earth called it controlled rage. They taught us to channel anger and fear into focused action instead of panic or wild aggression. Every human learns this technique, but most never need to use it seriously." "Every human?" Chitter clicked with interest. "All members of your species can enter this combat state?" "With proper training, yes. It's part of our basic survival programming. When we're truly threatened, we become much more dangerous than we appear." Station Commander Raxthul made notes on his tablet while considering the implications of this information. "The Federation Council will want detailed reports about human combat capabilities. It appears we have significantly underestimated your species' potential contributions to military operations." Katie's squad mates looked at her with new respect and not a little wariness. They were beginning to understand that the quiet, struggling trainee they had pitied was actually a member of a species that could be extremely dangerous when circumstances required it. "There is one thing I must ask," Zixnal said carefully. "Could you have killed Commander Vextar if you had chosen to?" Katie considered the question seriously before answering. "Yes, but killing him would have been wrong. He was testing me, not trying to murder me. I responded with appropriate force. For the situation, this judgment call, this restraint in the midst of combat fury, this is also typical of human warriors?" Raxthul asked. "Yes, sir. We call it rules of engagement. Even in our most aggressive state, we maintain awareness of what level of force is justified. It's what separates soldiers from murderers." The station commander finished his notes and looked around at the assembled crowd. "I believe we all learned something important today about judging other species by appearances. The Federation will benefit greatly from better understanding human capabilities. He turned back to Katie. Your transport to Special Forces training departs tomorrow. Use today to rest and prepare. I suspect your new instructors will be much more respectful of your abilities. As the crowd began to disperse, Katie's squad mates gathered around her one final time. The dynamics between them had changed completely. They no longer saw her as a weak link to be protected or pitied. Now they saw her as what she had always been, a warrior from a species that had survived by being more dangerous than anyone expected. I'm sorry we doubted you, Senthil said, both aloud and telepathically. Your mind contains depths we did not recognize. Thank you for the lesson in humility, Chitter added with what might have been alien laughter. My species values those who can surprise us. Katie looked around at her squad mates and felt a mixture of sadness and